Let's get Paul Wight on the show, formerly known as Big Show, All Elite Wrestling, WWE champ, WWF heavyweight champ. You know it. Wichita State, we're going to get in that as well. As he's part of All Elite Wrestling, AEW. It's going to be at Oakland Arena tonight, so get your tickets at AEWTix.com. It's going to be a great show. He was Captain Insano and the Water Boy, of course. But Paul Wight, we're talking about wrestling here. Paul, thanks for joining us, man. You're a living legend. Thanks for gracing us with your presence here on the Morning Roast on 95.7 The Game here today.
I love that. I love that living legend. That's a nice way of saying you're 10 days older than dirt, but thanks.
No, man.
Dude,
legends never die. You were the man.
Come on,
you were the man. But more importantly,
I'm like,
go ahead.
Now I'm like Snake Plissken. People are just happy I'm still alive.
Come on, man.
From Escape from New York.
Hey, listen, man.
Yeah,
look,
go ahead.
We know you grew up in South Carolina. You played football, you played hoops, and you played basketball at Wichita State. But you're also friends with one of our best guests ever in this show's history, Xavier McDaniel.
We love him.
Now we just had a caller saying that Xavier McDaniel was the guy who pushed you into wrestling. Is that true?
Well, let's not give X-Man all that credit. He was the one that X used to break my cookies pretty bad at Wichita State about going into wrestling. He asked me, he says, well, what are you going to do? I said, well, I'll try out for the Japan basketball. I'll try out for any basketball team that I can. And he said, you'll be the only 7-foot guy cut by the Japanese team. He says, what I'm telling you should do, he says, I'm telling you should go into pro wrestling and say you're Andre's son. And he said that in 1992, 2 years before I met Hulk Hogan and 3 years before I got in the ring. So,
wow.
It's pretty amazing.
Well, give me an X-Man going out story. I mean, because he's kind of a legendary figure. Like we've heard about him going at his own teammates. He told us about going at guys on other teams.
We've seen videos of him going at it with other teams. He tried to fight Charles Oakley. Nobody tries to fight Charles Oakley.
Did anybody try to test you two going out?
No. I mean, one, X is a little bit older than I am. I mean, I was just a young kid in college, and X was already seasoned NBA player. But I mean, X in Wichita is like, like Jesus walking into church. I mean, it's like he was a pretty popular dude there. I just love X's attitude. You talk about attitude. When one of the stories is when X came in as a freshman, Antoine Carr and Cliff Livingston were already there at Wichita State. And so they came over to say hi to this, rookie because, X had a little swell going in there. And X looked at both of them and said, I don't know which one of you two son of bitches plans on sitting, but I plan on starting, and walked out. And he said that as a freshman to Antoine Carr and Cliff Livingston, who were huge big men, but that was just X's mentality. He went straight ahead and straight through you. So I think we used to have a mural in our locker room. It's gone now, I'm sure, but there used to be a mural of X over the top of a crowd punching a KU guy right in the face.
Oh, my God.
It's incredible.
It's like this 20-foot picture on the wall in the locker room. It was like you just knew that X played hard. That's just the way he was.
First player to ever happens in double-double NCAA history. The legend of Xavier McDaniel lives on. Spinoni, if you can find a cut with when Xavier first joined us, I want to play it for Paul in just a second here. But look, man, you broke my heart when you chokeslammed Ric Flair and took the WCW Heavyweight Championship. What's the best match you think you've been a part of in your wrestling career?
Was it the Goldberg Slam?
Right.
Goldberg was an incredible guy to work with back then. He was so popular. Like literally everything that Goldberg touched turned to gold back then. The crowds had never seen anything like him, so he was always exciting to work with. If I look at my feuds over my career, I look at early in my career, my feuds with Hogan and Savage and Flair, because, they were so instrumental to me, growing up, coming in as a fan and working with Arn Anderson the same way, and Paul Orndorff, some of these guys that I grew up watching. And then as I got more into my career, I started working with talents that really pushed me, like Undertaker and Triple H and stuff like that. Stone Cold was great to work with. We all know working with The Rock, he's just absolutely, back then he was insane and he was so entertaining. But my personal favorite matches, a lot of matches I have with John Cena, a lot of matches, believe it or not, I have with Sheamus. I know it's Sheamus, and I used to kind of do the Madden thing, but the half Madden thing. I would do a tour bus, fly into a town, do my bus for the loop, and then I would fly home, and the bus would go on the next town. Because wrestling is basically flying, rent a car, drive 200 miles to the show, drive after the show another 200 miles, get a hotel. Like it's not that glamorous. Mm-hmm. And for a while, we were working out of state. We'd start in one state and finish in another state. So getting a big enough drop car, like you can't take a giant SUV. Back then, they weren't letting them go out of states. So there was some astronomical drop charge. So I went to a tour bus. And I remember sitting on my tour bus after one of my feuds with Sam. I said, this wasn't the matches on TV. We fought 3 or 4 nights a week that even weren't on TV for what they call live event shows. And I'm looking at myself and I'm thinking to myself, God, is my liver going bad? Like, what is wrong with me? I have all these yellow and purple splotches all over my arms, my legs, my stomach. And I'm thinking, wow, I need to get this checked out. I never bruise. Like, what the hell is wrong with me? And then I watched some of my matches back with Sheamus. I'm like, oh, that's where the bruises are coming from. They're coming from that redheaded guy. And then I look at Sheamus, and Sheamus is all pink and purple, and his skin's torn up on his chest, and he's got a fat lip and a black eye. I'm like, hey, maybe we should remember this wrestling stuff is kind of entertainment. Maybe we should lighten up a little bit. So he was one of the most physical opponents. Again, they were just like 2 ball-peen hammers swinging at each other. So Sheamus is always one of my funnest opponents, I think. Looking back now, like if Sheamus hit me that hard now, I would just pick up my feelings and leave.
You referenced, this is so cool talking with you, because I can't tell you how many hours me and my brother dedicated to watching you. You were a larger-than-life person that we looked up to. When you'd rip the singlet off, the leotard off, and you'd slap somebody, lift them up, and choke slam them. It was just the best. When you were smoking the cigarette that one time in the ring, like there's so many moments that I love. Take me back Take me back to when you met Hulk Hogan, though, because you referenced that. Like, this was 2 years, you were playing basketball, and then 2 years later, you met Hulk Hogan. Is that what got you in, meeting him? Like,
well, here's a long story that most of your listeners will probably fall over dead with boredom by the time I get to the end of it. So I'll try to go fast.
Yeah.
I got into wrestling through Danny Bonaducci, who introduced me to Hulk Hogan at a charity basketball game. And the first time I met Hulk, I was with this friend of mine named Jimmy from Chicago. He looked like Travolta from Get Shorty. Had the same exact attitude. I mean, they wore this, like, if you saw them standing next to each other back in the day, you would think Travolta saw Jimmy somewhere and copied his style. Like, it was crazy. So I met Hulk Hogan, introduced all that stuff, and then we were getting ready to do the basketball. I said, God, I had no idea Hulk Hogan was that big. And my buddy goes, what are you talking about? I said, dude, he's like taller than me. He goes, dude, what are you, nuts? You're like a foot taller than him. But his presence was so big. But at the time, I mean, I'm still a young kid. I remember watching, Suburban Commando and Rocky III, and like, here's this massive presence. And he does have a big presence. But, I owe everything to Danny Bonaducci and Hulk Hogan. I met Hulk Hogan December of 94. My first match was October of 95. And was against Hulk, and I went home with a world championship, my first match. So straight from the penthouse to the outhouse.
Wow. Talking to Paul Wight, formerly known as The Big Show, All Elite Wrestling. Don't forget, All Elite Wrestling at Oakland Arena tonight. Get your tickets at AEWTix.com, and this federation is growing.
AEWTickets.org.
.org. We got .com, Paul. We got .com. My bad.
Are you a Jags fan? Because the Niners play the Jags, and we know that the owner of the Jags is also the owner of AEW. So is it like a prerequisite for you guys to root for the Jags?
Well, it's funny. I'm really good friends with Mike Perkins, who works on the football team with the Jaguars. So I'm always hitting them up for free merch because I'm a flat-out free merch guy. And you're absolutely right. It's AEWTickets.com. My charity is AEWTogether.org, the one that I work with.
I thought you were going to choke slam me for saying that, man. I just kept my tracks there.
Pull the singlet off.
I was like, gee, now I can walk out the studio now.
Our marketing person just sent me a huge text. No, you idiot, AEW.
So I'm not the idiot, thank God. I'm usually the idiot 4 times a week here.
Dude, I've been hitting the head with a lot of chairs. I'm lucky I wake up in the morning and remember who I am sometimes.
Hey, so go ahead, Paul. Finish up because I got a couple more for you.
Well, it's funny for me because like a lot of my really good friends, because I lived in Miami for a while, I got to really see a lot of the Dolphins players in and around Coral Gables, and I was friends with Coach Gaze for a while, and I'm still friends with him. I just haven't talked to him in a while. But so I have a lot of free merchandise. The equipment manager at the Dolphins is a huge wrestling fan, and he would just send me crates and crates of like practice shorts and work, like all this cool stuff to work out in. So I have all this Miami Dolphins stuff, and I'm kind of a Dolphins fan anyway from a long ago. I think Johnny Depp and I were the only two Dolphin fans around back then. And then when I joined AEW, it was kind of like, do I need to become a Jacksonville fan too? And then like Mike Perkins from the Jags, he's a cool dude who hooks me up with some stuff here and there. So I have a lot of Jaguar merchandise and a lot of Dolphins merchandise. And I met Trevor earlier this year, and he is just such a stud in person. Like, I've been around a lot of studs, like leaders of men, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. And when I met Trevor, I was like, oh yeah, this kid's got it. This young man has got it. Like he's just got that presence about him that, you know, he's exactly where he needs to be, and he's going to be a great asset for Jacksonville. So I think I'm just a guy that just enjoys the people behind the teams. You know, if I get to know the people, I'm going to become a fan of the teams. So that's just how I work. I've got some friends in the Bucs too. Some of the friends in the Bucs because I live in Tampa.
So you covered it all in Florida. Then you're just whoever coming out of Florida. You're rolling with the Sunshine State.
Yeah, I mean, even like when I was living in Chicago, you know, I was like, oh, you had to be a Bears fan, and I was friend with Steve McMichaels, and used to go to Walter Payton's bar in Chicago, and I would see Walter Payton. Long before I got into wrestling, like Walter Payton was great, and I told Walter I was trying to get into wrestling, and he was excited about wrestling, and what an absolute gentleman he was. So, you know, for me, I can understand the passion with some fans that really have their team, and it's generational, and they're passionate about it, and it's the same thing with wrestling fans. You know, you have wrestling fans that are the same way with, they remember stuff you did 17 years ago and they haven't forgiven you for it. They'll let you know in the middle of Denny's. You know what I mean? Like, it's like,
hey, Paul, I want
17 years ago. Can we just
right? Can we move on?
Live in peace. Yeah.
I want to rat-a-tat-tat a couple quick ones here because we're running up against it.
Okay.
George Kittle for the Niners. He kind of fancies himself a showman. He gives me wrestling vibes. Could he hang? Could he hang in the ring?
Oh, absolutely. 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 Here's the thing. Wrestling is showmanship. There's a lot of wrestlers that don't have any athleticism, but they have showmanship. And then there's a lot of talent that is incredible wrestling, and the showmanship isn't there as much as others. I think for me, the key to being successful, you look at the biggest stars, the ones that have stood out in pro wrestling, in my mind, in the last 30 years, are guys that had showmanship and gals that had showmanship. Because, you know, if the wrestling part of it was the big draw, then amateur Greco-Roman wrestling would be selling at 100,000 seat arenas. It's not. What's selling out is the spectacle, the characters, the larger-than-life personalities that fans can identify with and gravitate to. And that's one of the things that really encouraged me about coming over to AEW was just the authenticity of a lot of these characters. Because I worked in a big place for a long time, a great place to work for that was very organized. They had the machine behind it. They had the 1.7 billion social media followers worldwide, 190 countries worldwide. Like, if you made their programming, you were going to become a star.
No doubt.
But also there were guidelines that you were kind of stuck between. You know, okay, only this guy can do this, only this girl can do this. Like, it was product stream, just like a company that's pushing out branded merchandise, like Marvel.
Right.
I mean, if you look at that in Marvel, it's the same thing. Like, you have your Iron Man, your Captain America, and then you have your characters and over there. Where AEW has a lot of just raw authenticity. When you have a promo in AEW, there's not 22 writers running around with notebooks and laptops, and they come up to you and you've never seen it before, and they say you have a promo. And in my mind, I'm like, you're 5'6" and don't know how to shave, and you're telling me what it's like to be a giant and a man. So let me see if I said that. My first was, I'm going to try to put this in my own words. You know what I mean? But
no doubt.
The talent really in AEW, it's really more authentic based, and that appeals to me a lot more personally. I think it's shown with our fans. I mean, we sold out 80,000 seats on brand alone in Wembley just a few months ago.
No doubt. Real quick here, we got it. We were up against it here, Paul. But how much did wrestling help you parlay your career, you talk about showmanship, you had a very good acting career as well, and it feels like the great showman in wrestling can parlay that into other things. How much did that help you in your acting career?
Absolutely, 100%. I mean, learning to be comfortable in front of the camera, learning how to relax, learning how to work with other personalities. You've never been in a room full of egos like you have a locker room full of pro wrestlers. And it's the same thing for Hollywood, I think. But the difference that I've seen in Hollywood, the people that are very successful, and why you see guys like The Rock and John Cena and Dave Bautista become so successful, is work ethic.
Yep.
One thing that pro wrestlers understand is you can waste your time complaining about things, or you can understand it is what it is. How do I make the most of it? How do I make the most of this opportunity? And I think if you're a showman and you've got a pro wrestling background, you're going to seize the opportunity to make the best of it. You're going to have a positive attitude. You're going to make sure that you say hello to everyone on set, because that's the thing in wrestling. You always say hello to everyone. You stay humble and you work hard.
So
and
true.
I think that kills a lot of the, I don't want to say the word diva, but some of the attitudes of entourages and all those different things that you see in Hollywood. Like one person will show up and there's a publicist and there's a lawyer and then there's an agent and there's a manager and then there's this person that tells them how great they are and just hangs around. You don't have that. Usually pro wrestlers are just there to show up and work, and we'll know our lines and we'll show up on time, and the rest is there to be done.
Well, Paul, we got to leave you with this. This was awesome. We're running out of time. We got to get out of here.
I want you on again.
We got you on again.
Please.
Don't forget, get tickets at AEWTix.com. We're going to leave you with this. We started the interview talking about Xavier McDaniel. .com. Listen, Xavier McDaniel, he's a living legend, not only in your world, but in our world as well. We'll leave you with this, Paul.
Derek McKee got hit in Seattle, and I was livid. It was Mahorn hit him, and I mean, he hit him hard. And I told Derek, get your ass up. And I said, Nick, call the same play. And the officials knew I was mad. And he tried to come in. I said, you guys didn't do nothing. And I said, call that same play. And I promise you, any of these touch Derek McKee, I'm going to break somebody's jaw.
I mean, that was live radio. I mean, every time he comes on, we have to use the dump button like 3 times.
I'm telling you. But, again, Xavier McDaniel, you're going to get authentic. I mean, he makes no apologies for who he is. Yes. He's going to play hard. He's going to talk trash. And, he's not afraid to give you a knuckle sandwich.
No doubt about that.
Paul, you're the best.
You're the best. Thanks so much,
you
Paul.
For all the memories,
appreciate you, man.
You're a great dude.
Thank you, guys. Thank you very, very much. And hopefully I'll see you guys out there tonight.
Hell
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Paul Wight, formerly known as Big Show. Don't forget, now part of AEW All Elite Wrestling. AEW will be at Oakland Arena tonight. Get your tickets at AEWTix.com.